Pretty much the highlight of today in Teslaville was Elon Musk's sit-down conversation with Ron Barron. I guess it wasn't really a sit-down. He was miles and miles away in Silicon Valley doing a Zoom, which, as you have to expect it among all of the experts in tech, including this one, and I'm not an expert in tech, but I've been doing tech a long time. There's always technical difficulties with the experts. I can tell you about some of the technical difficulties I've had over the last couple of days. No, I won't bother. It would bore you to tears. All right, let's see. What do we got going on, though? In addition, we will cover a teeny bit of the Ron Barron conversation, but what we have here is the semi-truck customer reveal. Tesla confirmed that it will be its own first major customer for the electric semi starting in 2026, electrifying its supply chain, including Texas operations. Production ramps up at the Reno facility, of course, in the first quarter, maybe even sooner. Now, this is not a surprise to me. Brian Wong and I have been talking about this for a very long time. There's no reason in the world why Tesla wouldn't want to use these trucks throughout their facilities as much as they possibly could because of the dramatic savings that these trucks will give them with regard to cost of goods, both shipping and receiving. So sending out finished product as well as receiving raw materials. And they do a lot of that. They do a huge amount of that throughout the United States and the world. I don't know if they'll be able to ship any of these overseas, but at least in the United States, they should get they'll probably need a bunch of these trucks. According to Mario Nawfal, and it's true, Mario is correct, on the program with Ron Barron, Elon said that he has absolute government proof that he's an alien. He says, I keep telling people I'm an alien, but nobody believes me. I mean, when I got my green card, it said alien registration card. So, I mean, I have proof from the government. Elon has also said that Tesla and SpaceX are America's biggest manufacturing successes since World War II. Now, just think about that. He's comparing himself. Well, I don't know. So Boeing would have already been around before World War II, but has Boeing been a bigger success in terms of what they've done since World War II? I'm not sure who else would even be in the running. I mean, Ford and General Motors, they've existed for 100 years, more than 100 years. I'm trying to think of anything else comparable. Monsanto was around. Anyway, I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments below if you think that Elon could have this wrong, but those are two massive U.S. manufacturing successes, so it might be hard to beat. He says the relatively rare skills these days in America in terms of getting anything hardware built. If you look at the biggest successes in manufacturing in America since World War II, the two would be Tesla and SpaceX. So then Tesla has put out a new page on their website. FSD supervised saves lives and prevents injuries. FSD supervised improves U.S. road safety by over 80%, reducing the likelihood of collisions caused by human error. 32,000 lives could potentially be saved each year. NISTA reported 40,900 fatalities on the road in the U.S. in 2023. 1.9 million injuries could have potentially be avoided per year. NISTA reported 2.4 million injuries on the road in the U.S. in 2023. So that's just a tad off of what I thought it was 90%. So I was saying the other day that it would be 36,000 lives saved. But what is interesting, and I wish Elon would listen to my program because then he could put this up and it would be, I think, totally interesting. All of the passive restraints, the seat belts, the airbags, everything else that the car has now in terms of passive restraints, they only save 4,000 lives per year. Tesla's full self-driving could save 32,000 miles a year. I continue to make the claim that Tesla should not be having to go through a process of being approved for use, but rather it should be turned around and it should be required on all vehicles and give all the automakers 3 years, 4 years, 5 years to comply. Forbes has this. You see, they saw the report, and Forbes doesn't like Tesla, apparently. I mean, it's pretty obvious. So Tesla looked at that report There was lots of crash data in there, and they said that the recently released crash data on their supervised FSD system reporting the average number of miles driven per collision for cars in different configurations on different roads. This replaces the notorious autopilot data that Tesla has released for several years, which has been widely criticized for being misleading. Tesla has corrected a number of the errors in their methodology and now claims cars driving with FSD have almost 1.5 as good a safety record globally on the city streets as similar Teslas not using FSD, and 4 times better than very old Teslas that lack any kind of ADAS collision warning system and other active safety tools. The record is almost 2 times better in North America, and it's over 100% of all road classes. Now, this goes way beyond what he said. He also took into consideration cars that are not Teslas and the overall total market, and it was as they just talked about, 8 times better. Tesla's old reports made the false claim that driving with Tesla Autopilot was 10 times safer than driving an average car. They compared Tesla crashes primarily on the freeways. This is in the very, very, very long time ago. This is recently, they have not been doing that. They compared Tesla crashes on the freeway, which triggered an airbag. They were only looking at those which triggered an airbag, with general police reporting crashes for the whole population. This would be expected to be around 5 to 6 times better since most crashes don't trigger an airbag. There are far fewer crashes per mile on freeways, and Tesla drivers are of a safer driving demographic. As such, the old comparison used misleading math to make Tesla Autopilot look much better than it really is. I was the first to point this out many years ago, says the writer in Forbes. Well, you're spouting nonsense, and you should be called out for spouting nonsense, so I'm going to do it. The ADAS system on any car is going to dramatically improve the number of accidents per mile on freeways and surface streets, and I think you know better. I've driven cars with other safety systems for years and years, and I can tell you that they've stopped me from hitting a car in front of me. And these minor accidents that you're talking about that don't even deploy an airbag or result in a police officer being called. Is that the accidents we care about? I think the accidents we care about are the accidents where somebody gets killed or somebody gets hurt really badly. Tesla has finally changed their approach. They have switched from autopilot, which is 90% driven on freeways, to FSD, and also break down the numbers for highways and non-highways and for North America versus global. This level of detail helps make it easier to do apples-to-apples comparisons, which are vital for this sort of research. Tesla also breaks down the data for major collisions where there's an airbag or a pyrotechnic seatbelt tightener deployed, and also minor ones where those things don't happen. For non-Tesla cars, they don't have this data, so they consider crashes where one vehicle was towed as major, though that includes many non-airbag crashes. Really? I guess if the car is hit in the back rear fender, I don't know, and it gets towed as such, I believe the U.S. average numbers cited by Tesla are not directly comparable to the numbers for Teslas, but they are much closer, so it's less further off. That's kind of him. That's fine, because the main question we want to examine is, does driving while unsupervised with unsupervised FSD make you more safe or less safe? Both are possible. Really? Supervising a system like FSD in the ideal gives you 2 sets of eyes on the road. Oh, really? How about, what is it, 5, let's see, 6 cameras, I guess, on all the cars, 7 on some, or 7 on all of them, 8 on some. Anyway, plus your own 2, plus maybe the person sitting next to you. Way more than 2 sets of eyes. It's just 2 sets of systems, I guess. Supervising a system like FSD in the ideal gives you 2 sets of eyes on the road. FSD is looking for and avoiding hazards, and so is the human attentive driver. If both do their job well, they can be safer than a human on their own. On the other hand, tools like FSD and autopilot are known to generate complacency. Some drivers even famously deliberately ignore the road or even put defeat devices on their cars to avoid the driver monitoring that's meant to discourage that. Is he kidding me now? How long have we had the camera? It's not even a camera. Did you know that? It's not even a camera. It's a sensory device that it's not like a regular video camera. Those drivers can be more dangerous to themselves and others since FSD is not yet able to match human driving ability on its own unsupervised. Yes, it is. Even Tesla admits this and have safety drivers in their robotaxi pilot. That's not why. They know they can't have an accident in that robotaxi in Texas or in Northern California and have it blow with nobody in the driver's seat or even in the passenger seat because it would blow up into a major headline. Well, guess what? The driver that's sitting in the passenger seat or the rider that's sitting in the passenger seat isn't going to be able to do anything to avoid an accident, major, minor, or otherwise. Is that right? I think so. Don't you? Even drivers who don't deliberately ignore the road may become more complacent. I sometimes become more complacent. Because why? Because I know it's fine. It's better than me. That's what he doesn't talk about. He doesn't talk about it being better than humans in so many different ways. Like, I don't know, Elon goes, he could have looked at the page. It talked about why people end up getting in accidents. It has to do with being inebriated on various substances. It has to do with speeding. It has to do with distracted drivers. It has to do with sleepy drivers. I went over all this with you guys a couple of weeks ago, if you were watching that video. Indeed, there will be a mix of drivers. Some will be diligent and become safer with the systems. Others may not. There's also an ethical question, even if the non-diligent drivers are left safe, as to whether we would forbid the diligent drivers from getting superior safety in order to prevent the bad apples. Not in a million years. Especially if it becomes unsupervised. As presented, Tesla's data suggests that on balance, FSD is working and increasing safety on average. That's presuming that Tesla has not continued its pattern of repainting the data to make themselves look better. Do they realize what that would look like? Is this guy absolute idiot? If if NISTA found out that this information they're putting on their website was incorrect, the SEC would get involved, NISTA would get involved. The guy's a moron. Their past track record there is so terrible. Their past track record had to do with available data and the ability to compare. We'll talk about more of that in a minute. In the weeks to come, there will be more analysis of their methods to refine these conclusions. Indeed, Tesla in the report highlights the most invalid comparisons the mostly invalid comparisons with their U.S. average estimate, suggesting they have not given up on their efforts to try to look better. Tesla has not as yet provided this data for past quarters to allow us to see trend lines as Tesla FSD has gone to new versions. They promise they will release new data every quarter. Elon Musk, in his efforts to release the robotaxi version of FSD, has said their goal is to drive much better than humans. He has further said that the system will work unsupervised before the end of this year. These charts suggest FSD is doing well, but it's not close to being ready for unsupervised release, since FSD plus human is only doing modestly better than a human alone on the city streets. Modestly better? They need FSD alone to do 2 to 3 times better than a human alone for that. Why would they need that? Wouldn't they just need it to be 1x humans? Would it just have to be the same? I would do it. I would absolutely start using it if it was if they could prove that it was exactly the same as the average human driver, because I'm worse than the average human driver. The past history of robocars suggests that a very poor self-driving system combined with a human safety driver is usually pretty safe. Self-driving teams have had few recorded at-fault crashes with safety drivers, even when they needed interventions every few miles. Tesla's data includes all crashes, not just at-fault ones. That's right. Good self-driving systems actually prevent not at-fault crashes, as Tesla demonstrates in a video on the page for this data, showing FSD avoiding hitting a car that runs a red light at a cross street, and several other crashes that would have been the fault of the other driver that it avoided. This is a great example of a second set of systems that are helping you to avoid the crash. TechCrunch then does their own analysis, says one of the repeated criticisms of Tesla's quarterly safety reports that it focus on autopilot, which they say is a far less advanced driver assistance system than full self-driving, which, despite its name, does not make a car fully autonomous yet. They don't say yet. Autopilot was designed to be used on highways, which typically see a lower rate of crashes when including minor collisions. Tesla has finally broken out all this data. The new section on Tesla's website claims that drivers using FSD are about 2.9 million miles between major collisions. Where was that in the Forbes article? Where did he say? Where did they say that? The website claims that drivers using FSD travel about 2.9 million miles between major collisions, while NHTSA data shows that drivers travel about 505,000 miles between major collisions if they don't have any of this stuff. Actually, overall, that's the grand total. Tesla claims FSD users drive about 986,000 miles between minor collisions, while NHTSA data shows all drivers travel around 178,000 miles between minor collisions. No, there's no difference at all. I don't know why they would allow this to go unsupervised. Tesla is also finally showing it defines how they define these terms for the first time. The car maker is using the Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards, specifically 49 CFR, page 563, I don't know, or number 5, whatever it is. You don't care. Tesla defines major collisions as crashes with higher severity impacts where a vehicle's airbags or other non-reversible pyrotechnic restraints are deployed. The company also said that if FSD was active at any point within 5 seconds leading up to a collision event, then it includes that crash in the data set. This calculation ensures that our reported collision rates for FSD supervised capture not only collisions that occur when the system is actively controlling the vehicle, but also scenarios where a driver may disengage the system or where the system aborts on its own shortly before impact, Tesla says. So for instance, I've been in situations, and I've seen lots of them on YouTube, where you think the car is doing something wrong. My latest one was coming back from Big Sur, and we had gone all the way to Big Sur without touching the wheel. We'd come all the way back to Hollywood and going through Hollywood. And it was, I was sitting in this lane, trucks in that lane, and it looked to me like the car was not paying attention exactly as I wanted to. So, I took over. But I don't know whether that would have caused an accident. And what if I took over and the car would have done the right thing and I did the wrong thing? Because sometimes the car knows way better than I do what else is out there that might impact the situation. In its fact session, Tesla states that it will update the data every quarter and that it will reflect a rolling 12-month aggregation of miles and collisions in an effort to remain relevant to recent trends and progress. The company says it won't release other information like injury rates because it's collecting this data automatically from the vehicles, the data that they're getting. Instead, Tesla focuses on objective and programmatic metrics such as collision frequency, airbag deployment rates. Airbag deployments serve as a reliable proxy for collision severity, the company writes. From the Tesla website, explaining even more. Why does Tesla report that the most collisions? Why do they report more collisions under NHTSA's standing general order on crash reporting as compared to other car companies? In fact, under the general order, it requires manufacturers to report known collisions involving a vehicle traveling with an automated driver system, ADS, or advanced driver systems, ADAS, engaged within the last 30 seconds before a collision occurs, among other reporting criteria. However, the SGO does not require manufacturers to develop a telemetry system to receive notification of collisions involving an ADAS or ADS system. Tesla uses the collision telemetry system described in the vehicle safety report to supplement federal reporting obligations, including the SGO. Tesla designed the vehicles to maximize connectivity and capability. We use remote telemetry to learn from the vehicle fleet to inform a variety of engineering decisions, including being notified about safety critical events such as major or minor collisions. In contrast, vehicle manufacturers whose vehicles are less connected largely don't get the vehicle data at all when a collision ensures that involves one of their vehicles, unless or until a customer tells them or sues them. The consequence of the SGO's reporting scheme suggests higher absolute collisions among Tesla vehicles than for every other vehicle manufacturer combined. However, the reality is that Tesla reports more collisions simply because we have a large, active, and fully connected customer vehicle fleet. This unfortunate consequence of the SGO is compounded by a lack of data normalization. While the SGO requires manufacturers to report absolute collision counts, it doesn't require manufacturers to report the number of their vehicles operating on U.S. roads or the distance traveled in those vehicles. If one considers absolute collision counts alone, collisions will appear to increase with increased adoption or usage, while in reality, the rate of incidents might be decreasing. So I hope that that's helpful to you in terms of discussing this with friends and neighbors. Maybe it's helpful for you in terms of thinking about turning on your FSD Are you driving a car? Let me know in the comments below. Are you driving a Tesla that has FSD on it and you're not using the FSD? We know that about 80% of people that have a Tesla don't use FSD. I've done some counting myself on the freeways, just kind of peering into the car and seeing if hands are on the wheel. Maybe, I don't know if you're one of those, but I'd love to hear about it in the comments and why. Are you afraid? I mean, I was afraid. Not, wasn't like exactly afraid. It was like, it makes me anxious. It was making me anxious. And then finally one day it was like, no, now this, this thing's amazing. And so now, except for my trip to the grocery store, 4/10 of a mile away, I use it all the time. Well, okay, if I'm honest, if I am late and trying to get someplace in a hurry, I do tend to drive myself, which probably isn't the smartest thing to do. All right, what happened on the market today? Let's go ahead and look at where Tesla ended up. We were at 404.35 at the bell, and we were at 405.42 at 5 o'clock California time, 8 o'clock Eastern. That is where we are for the day. So we're still down $40 from kind of the norm, 40, which is 444. We are down $65 from the all-time high. Well, the all-time, what do they call that? It wasn't exact, because 480 is the real all-time high. 470, maybe it was the high for this year. Anyway, obviously we've got a long way to go to make that up. And people are asking me, Randy, what about your $500 call? I mean, your $500 a share call. My $500 share call continues to be in the, that's what I'm expecting. And just to show you that I'm not completely off my rocker, Tom Lee was on programs today, or at least one program I saw him on today, and he says, look, he's still expecting S&P 7,100 by the end of the month. He's still expecting maybe 73 to 7,500 by the end of the year. He's still expecting a big increase in both Bitcoin and that other one, what's it called? Ethereum. Is that right? I'm always messing that one up. Anyway, so I'm not the only person here that thinks that the market's going to turn around and Tesla is still going to do fine this year. And of course, my other number, 750 by the end of the year, which, and when you look at Tom Lee's expectations, doesn't seem so crazy, but it requires 1,500 unsupervised, no rider, no safety person in the car, 1,500 of those minimum on the road. And at that point, I think we're at 7,500. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but that's my number. All right, but it requires that. And no, crazy nonsense. Nobody's starting World War III or something. God forbid. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the rest of let's look at some of the other numbers here on what happened today. We had the Dow Jones ended up down, let's see here, 0.65%. NASDAQ was up 0.13. S&P was barely changed, 0.05. All of those were way down and came way back today. We got Apple, Google, Amazon, and Meta all down at the end of the day, all kind of lost steam at the end. Tesla did too, but managed to stay in the green. And Microsoft and NVIDIA, who also lost a little steam at the end of the day, but both of them managed a pretty decent day, actually, but way down from where they were. NVIDIA's at 190.17. The VIX came back down under 20 to 1983. So everything's cooling off at this point compared to this morning. And then CRISPR managed a real nice increase, but the rest of the Cathie Wood stocks, not so much. All right, what about those bonds? Well, you know what I know. We already know what happened, right? Yeah, here we go. Up 3.9 basis points to 4.15. Now, this has been kind of a ceiling at 4.15. I'm going to continue to believe this is the ceiling. Now, what happens if the Fed does not lower rates in December? I'm not positive this is still a ceiling, but it might be. Because I believe if they do lower rates or we get closer to the date and it looks like they're going to lower rates, we do go back down to 3.95. All right, that's my range right now. All right, what about oil? Oil's 59.95. There's all kinds of things going on with the Russians and with Iran at the Straits of Hormuz and all kinds of things that you would think would make the oil prices go up, but apparently there's just a huge amount of oil on the market right now, according to my sources. They're your sources too. Natural gas down 2.95 for the day, but still at $4.51, which is crazy. President Trump, I'm calling you. Remember, you need to do something about natural gas. You're doing something about steaks. You're doing something about coffee. You're doing something about bananas. Now it's time to do something about natural gas before it just goes crazy. People start getting those heating bills. They're not going to like you. Gold slips 110 bucks at the end of the day to 4,084. Silver down even more than that, down 5.21 to $50.40. But it was down more. If you'll remember, it was down around 47.48 earlier this week. Copper back down to 505, down a full percent. But again, so that's kind of in the middle of, it was down like 460, 455 something. It was up 525 because of that copper mine problem. Okay. The dollar, not much change today. Bitcoin down 2,074, still sitting around 96,243. Well, exactly 96,243. And then Ethereum actually up today a little bit, up 0.31, 3,183, but that's still, I think, around 10%, no, 20% under where it was. There's no pre-market, of course, on Friday night. So that would be all that I have for you in the numbers. And let's talk about what happened earlier today. Number one, you're going to want to go back and look at that video that I did with Phil Beisel. Phil is an engineer and he has his own way of talking to us about the things that are going on. And so he took a look at that conversation with Ron Barron today with Elon Musk, and he loved what he saw. There's so much content in there. I just can't encourage you enough. Now, you can go back and watch the whole thing with Ron Barron, or you could watch what Phil Beisel does in terms of interpreting it and adding on to what Elon said. And then what about tomorrow? Well, tomorrow, if everything goes well, Cathie Wood Day, a week late, I know, but Larry and I will do our analysis of the Cathie Wood analysis. And that's one of your favorites of the month. And because of all kinds of confusion over the last week, we had to put it off a week. Okay, so that's what's happening tomorrow. In addition to normal stuff that I do on Saturday, that will be part of it. Phil Beisel will be back tomorrow, and then the regular news show that I do at the end of the day. That's it for now. No, buy the book. Buy the book. Don't forget to buy the book. Let's see, can I give you another reason to buy the book? Because you're getting value out of the show, and $2.95 is less than a cup of coffee. How about that? It's less than a cup of coffee, and you like the show. And I don't care if you ever read it. You're just buying the book to say, way to go, Randy. I want you to read the book. I especially want you to read chapter 3. As much as I love all of the other authors, I think it's the most important chapter of the book. And I think once you read chapter 3, you're going to want to maybe you'll send it around, maybe you'll just let your friends and family read it, but I think you're going to want to send it to all your friends and family. It talks about what's going to happen with the jobs. It's way better than anybody thinks, but it's not going to be all roses. There's going to be plenty of adjustments, let's call it. This is Randy Kirk, and it's been great talking to you.